All right, we're gonna jump right into it. Foot strike. I've gone through and read a lot of comments on some of my run form videos and how much you guys are appreciative of the simple outlook, the simple technique, the simple coaching that comes with my run form coaching. And it is simple. And today we're going to talk about how you can use jumping to really illustrate why forefoot strike is so important. First of all, we have to realize that running is really jumping. The definition of jumping is having 2 feet in the air at the same time, and that's running. Versus walking, which is a transfer of weight, where there's always one leg contact with the ground. So if we can start to understand that running is jumping, it maybe completely changes our perspective of how we need to strike the ground. Because from an injury standpoint, we want to minimize force production into the ground, the landing, and maximize our push off, or the force that we apply into the ground after we land based on how fast we want to run. I have the trail to myself this morning, and I thought for sure I'd get you guys a bear this morning, but just a bunch of scat. If we want to minimize our landing and the force that we provide into the ground as we land, just like jumping, why would we want to land on our heels? It makes sense then that we want to land on our forefoot. And again, it's a very subtle forefoot to heel strike. That's where our shock absorber is. That's where our spring is. That's where our suspension system is. That's where we minimize our landing and then spring off in a good way when we take off after our landing. So again, I feel it's really important to use examples to illustrate where we need to be with run form and foot strike. So grab a bench, grab a rock, jump up onto it, jump off of it, jump back onto it, jump off of it, jump high off of it and down and land. Land after jumping off the bench and then jump up high in the air. Notice how I didn't have to teach you how to do this. Do it barefoot, even better. Okay, notice how you naturally will use the natural spring with our arch, with our forefoot, to land and to take off again. And then put your shoes on maybe and jump off of it and land on your heel. Be careful, be careful. Land on even mid or flat footed, and notice one, how noisy it sounds, and obviously how harsh it feels, because that's the landing while we run that we want to minimize. And that's where the forefoot strike, our natural spring, comes into play. My legs are tired, so again, I'm back into my seasonal transition, going back to nice strength running. See my last video on strength running, and all I'm doing is creating strength by continuing repetition of landing with my forefoot then to heel. Again, it's a very subtle forefoot to heel strike. We're not keeping the heel elevated off the ground. Relax your foot, strike with a subtle forefoot, then heel landing. I'm on a very rolling hilly course, so I'm slowing up on the downhill, so I'm able to have good forefoot strike, which is great eccentric strength training. Since the eccentric or the landing is so important and we want to minimize that, we want to focus on that in training. So if you're always working the concentric or the taking off, we're missing a big opportunity to help not only with strength in general for running, but injury prevention. So go back to that bench, that rock, and do depth jumps. Step off the bench and land and hold and stick it. That's eccentric loading. Wonderful, wonderful strength. And a strength that's very, very underutilized. It's a perfect day for the Solomon Cross, my second run. Love them so far. Again, I got them mainly for winter and see how they're gonna work in the winter snow. But really good on this moist and a little muddy at times trail. Perfect for what they're made for. Speaking of snow, we're expecting low temperatures of 10 degrees this coming weekend. So snow's coming, winter's coming. It's about 50 degrees right now. So now that you've tried jumping off a rock or a bench to understand how important forefoot strike is, gonna get out of the wind. Now try doing a standing broad jump and jump forward as far as you can. Notice where you naturally, or how you naturally use your forefoot to take off and have that natural spring forward to get your distance. That's what we want when we run. We want to use that push off into the ground to jump forward or to run forward, not reach out in front of us. Okay, so do the standing broad jump to understand how you provide force into the ground and where forefoot strike is so important, because if we land on our heel, then we naturally have to get to our forefoot. There's a lot of time spent on the ground, let alone all the force applied into the ground. We want to eliminate that. Land on your forefoot to heel and then immediately take off forward. Wind's picking up around the lake. I'm on the furthest end of Phelps Lake. It's a nice big loop around the lake and headed back. But now we need to talk about common mistakes if you need to change your foot strike. But let me back up. Regardless of whether you need to change your foot strike or not, this is something that we can all work on, and all should work on, because it's great strength training. I work on this all the time, and I've been doing this a long time. So the first common mistake for those who think they have good foot strike and it's not something to work on, we can always work on it. Another mistake when first starting to change foot strike is doing too much too soon. You've got to start out with 5-10 minutes at a time and see how sore your calves get, because the calves will get sore. And be sure you're letting the heel hit the ground. Don't keep it elevated. With that common mistake of doing too much, it's gonna feel good. Don't do this during a time of high volume training. You've got to do it at a time where you're able to be patient and maybe do 5-10 minutes at a time, and frequently. Maybe you can do it twice a day, 5-10 minutes at a time. Frequency is key. So don't overdo it, especially veteran runners who are used to a lot of high volume. You're still gonna need to ease into this. And with doing too much, it's one of the most important common mistakes people make is thinking all they need to do is to learn run form and they have it. We discussed today the importance of forefoot strike, but now it just takes practice. It takes muscle memory. It takes a lifetime to perfect this. Don't think it's just something that you learn and go out and do. Think of it like writing. If you're right-handed, if I asked you to write with your left hand, you know how to write with your left hand, you're just not very good at it. It takes muscle memory to get good at your left hand. And that's exactly what changing your run form is like. This is the summer jumping rock. Ooh, there's the wind. And right back there is Death Canyon. One of the 5 canyons into the Tetons. Another common mistake. Standing in the wind while videotaping. It's the mountains, right? Another common mistake when you're working on run form and forefoot strike, especially making that transition, running too fast. Slow down. Do strength running. 2 to 3 minutes per mile slower than your normal pace. Okay? Just land well and get off of it. So, common mistake, trying to run too hard. Trying to run too fast. Do it alone so you're not tempted to run faster with other people. Okay, it's crucial. Slow down, practice, practice, practice. Also, be sure you're training your feet. All those readers of the Cool Impossible, stick with the foot strength in the book. That will help make forefoot strike transition quicker, but maybe more importantly, it's neuromuscular strength for the whole body up to the hip. Okay, so foot strength, eventually proper shoes, all go into helping the muscle memory take hold of forefoot strike just a little bit quicker. Common mistake, running too fast downhill at first, so you are forced to overstride. Slow down, strike the ground well, be patient. Another common mistake, zoning out while you're running. Throwing the music on, chatting with other friends all the time, and losing awareness of what your body's doing. Athleticism is awareness. And at first, we need a lot of awareness with our foot strike. And through time, we begin to feel a good strike, and we have to think about it less. Foot strike will reward us. It'll train our body in the right way. It'll use muscles in an appropriate way. It'll fire muscles in an appropriate way. It'll take away tightness. No longer will you have tight IT band and hip flexor tightness, because all the tug and pull is taken away by using your body and your foot in a proper way. With this, though, comes patience, practice. The 2 P's, patience and practice. It's not going to happen overnight. And therefore, Just because it takes time, maybe causes some frustration, doesn't mean it's improper to do. I see this over and over. Athletes start to get frustrated. They see that it's too hard, it takes too long, and then they think it's not for them. If you see it as a lifetime of mastery, that'll give you the patience for this to take hold. Thanks for watching. As always, see you next time.